Today I'll be rebuilding the drum brakes on my 1979 Chevy Suburban K20. We're also going to do wheel cylinders and axle seals since we're going to have the hubs torn apart anyway. Let's check it out. Tearing down the drum brakes on a square body, especially a 3/4 ton like this, it's not as easy as just pulling off the wheel and pulling off that brake drum. We're actually going to have to unbolt the axle shaft, pull it out, and remove a few other things. So it's important to make sure when you park your rig to do this project, leave yourself about 4 feet on either side. That way the axle shaft has enough room to come out. One last thing is make sure you order the right parts before you start this job. K20's had either an 11-inch or a 13-inch drum, and you can see from here we have the bigger 13-inch drum. Removing the axle shaft is actually the first thing we're gonna do. We have 8 3/4-inch bolts, and I did already drain the diff fluid out, just a bunch of 9/16 bolts holding the cover on. That's because this is sealed, so when we pull this off, fluid would have poured out. So remove these first. Pull it back a little bit, and got a little fluid left over, and the seal is on there as well. And pull this axle shaft all the way out. So that's all the room you need right there. That's more like 3 feet. And I already got a rag over here for a landing spot. Next, we're gonna remove the lock nut, which is this ring in here. You can either use a special tool like this or even a punch and a hammer on those little teeth and just break it loose. So we'll take this out. Gotta bend those little tabs back. So there's our lock nut ring. And then here is the lock right there. Now if you can see it, there's another collar in there. That's the adjusting nut. Take that out next. Same tool. Next should be a washer with a key. That should be everything holding the drum on. Unexpected turn of events. When I pulled that drum off and flipped it over, the outer wheel bearing came flying out. And it's all in pieces. Got rollers everywhere. This is supposed to hold the rollers in, and it's missing a bunch of the pieces floating around in the axle somewhere. So it looks like we're doing wheel bearings too. Gonna have to make a run to the parts house, see what they got, but we will continue, get these brakes done first, and then we'll move on to the wheel bearings. These brake shoes actually really don't look all that bad, but the brakes never really felt right. The pedal was always kind of squishy and not very responsive. In addition to new shoes, we got new wheel cylinders and all new hardware. They look pretty complex, but they're not all that bad. I do recommend taking a picture before you start taking stuff apart. Start with all these big springs on the top. They all work generally the same. Get all the springs off first. Now the only thing holding the shoes on are these spring-loaded little pins here. And they're a little tricky. It's a little pin with a T-shape at the end. This cup is on the outside. We need to compress the spring, turn it, and then pull it out to release the pin. You can see the pin on the back side, and usually I'll just hold that down and then get on the little dish and just push in and turn. And then, looks like the only thing holding the park brake lever is this little retainer clip. The wheel cylinder unbolts from the back here. Now it is important to note that neither the hardware kit or the new wheel cylinder came with these plungers. So we'll make sure we transfer those over. And to get it off, we have the 3/8 brake line that will hopefully crack loose. Looks good. And then 2 3/8 mounting bolts. And the new one, just make sure you take out the plug for the brake line, and then the bleeder fitting, that one can stay right where it's at. Get the new one reattached, and then we'll have to bleed the system when it's all said and done. We'll go ahead and reassemble the drum brakes now that we got a fresh wheel cylinder installed. I laid everything out just to make sure that I have everything in the new kit, and it looks like the only piece we'll be reusing is this bar right here, and it's all gonna go together exactly the way it came apart, just in reverse. That's why it's helpful to have a picture or a video reference. First thing I'm gonna do here is take the right side shoe and get this parking brake arm pushed into place, and next we're gonna put in this lever with this little cam piece in this orientation. We're gonna hook it into the top just like that. And we'll take one of these for the spring, put it in there like that, bring up the brake shoe, put that spring cup into that hole right there, get it on there like such. Now make sure that the piston goes into the little slot on the brake shoe. Then we'll send one of these pins through the back. That's where it's gonna get weird. Trying to hold all this crap. Now we need the spring. I usually like to set the whole assembly on the ground like that. See how I got them both on there? Then we'll just make sure that keyway is lined up with the pin. And we'll push on and twist. There it is. Now this popped off up here. We should be able to manipulate this a little bit, hopefully. For the front half, we don't have all this going on. It's still a little bit tricky. So first we'll put in this bar that we're gonna be reusing. It curves in towards the truck, just like that. And then the side here that has the two shoulders goes towards the front, and this spring goes on there like that with the little loop-de-loop sticking up. And it just engages right here. Bring in our other shoe. And on this one, we have another one of these cups for the spring that goes right there. We'll get our pin in the back and we'll try and get everything lined up. Honestly, by the looks of it, I think we could get that in later. Same idea as the other side. Try and grab it all as a unit like that. Line it up. I think we'll be all right getting this into place. And that's honestly all the hard work. It's pretty simple from here. We've got the shoe guide, which just presses on up top. Now all we got left is our springs. Got this short little guy that goes right here. Here's that little cam piece, I don't know what to call it, that we put on earlier. And it's got a little hook on the end. And we're just gonna hook this metal rod, the long end of it. And that's just gonna come up here to the main pin, hook up top. Then we have this spring, which is gonna go from this hole and hook to the hook of the metal arm there. Then we have the main spring for the left half, which goes from that hole and also goes to the top there. Put your back into it. Okay. We have this spring here that goes from that hole up to this little lever on that tooth right there. But I'm gonna cheat a little bit and pin this down just to bring that distance a little bit closer. Throw a vice grip on here. Now this is a good time right here to demonstrate the screwdriver method. Don't poke your eye. We got one more spring. That's a direct link between the two shoes. We'll get our adjuster in place. And let's see what we can do. That is that. Drum brakes are completely rebuilt. Looks good. Now, one last thing we need to do is put the drum back on and adjust them. I'm gonna clean it. Wipe it down a little bit. Now, it would probably behoove you to get it resurfaced, but I'm not doing that. Just new shoes and we got them. Honestly, these don't look too bad anyway. They're actually pretty smooth. The little adjustment wheel, when you hear it click, that means it's moving out, getting tighter. And you can actually do this with your wheel completely assembled, vehicle on the ground. There's a little slot right back here, and you can get in there with a flathead and turn that wheel like that. Even though we don't have an outer wheel bearing, the inner one is still intact. And what we're looking for is just a little bit of drag. So that's pretty much just free spinning right there. So we'll pull it back off, and we'll spread them out a little bit, and we'll test. See, that's getting close. You can hear it scraping a little bit, but there's still like no resistance when I spin. So I'm just gonna keep doing this until I have a little bit of drag. Then I'll show you. Do my last couple adjustments with the screwdriver. It's getting pretty tight, taking it on and off. It's actually pretty good. That's what we're looking for. A little bit of drag. And now we'll take about a half turn off of that wheel. Wrapped up on the driver's side with the brakes, that's all good to go. Now we'll get on to doing these wheel bearings and axle seals. To make doing the wheel bearings a little bit easier, I mounted the hub to my spare tire here, and we got it flipped around. And the first thing we're gonna do is pop out the old seal. Now it's kind of hard to see where the edges are at because it's so caked up, but it's sitting in there like that. And this is just our oil seal. So I don't really have a tool for this or anything, so I'm just gonna start prodding and prying. Now that that seal's off, we have our inner bearing. That's a little more what it's supposed to look like. This one is intact. So I got the bearing out, and pressed into the hub is the race, which is this tapered piece right here. It's sitting in there, and that is what the bearing rides in. So we'll flip the wheel around and we'll punch it out. It needs to come out this way. So with the wheel flipped around, you can look down in there, and that edge right there is the race. We're gonna use the pry bar, maybe a screwdriver, something flat that we can hammer, and we'll just get on an edge like that, hit it a little bit, come over here, hit it in all directions, try and get it out as straight as possible. The inner bearing race is what we just punched out right there. And then up here, you can see the outer bearing race, and it needs to come out the same way. We need to punch it downward, but there's a snap ring on the other side we need to flip over and remove. There's that old race, and I'll get you a peek at that snap ring. Right there it is. Let's give it a shot. There it comes, and release. Now we'll flip it over yet again and drive that outer race out. And we'll just go through these slots right here. Just grab the edge of that race. All right, that wasn't too bad. Here's the outer race that we just punched out. Now we're gonna clean up the hub real good. Get ready for the new bearings. Got that hub pretty clean. Now I'm gonna take some gear oil and we're gonna lube it up and get ready to drive these races in. So the outer bearing is the smaller of the two, and this part came as the bearing and the race as a kit together. The inner one you had to buy separately. We'll get the bearing lubed up with some gear oil, and the race, plenty of gear oil on there. We're ready to drop it in. The bearing's gonna go in first with the shorter end of the taper pointing up. So we'll drop this in. And then the race is gonna go in with this lip facing up as well. That way we can drive it in. Now that we got that race in there, we'll use the driver. See if we can send it home. That felt pretty solid. We just want to drive it far enough where that groove is exposed for the snap ring, which we're going to reinstall right now. On that outer bearing, I drove it a little bit too far, so I flipped the wheel around and used a flathead to kind of knock down a little bit and made it tight against that snap ring. So that bearing is good to go. Ready to do the inner bearing now, starting with the race. And on the inner bearing, the race goes in first with the edge facing down. Pretty solid. You can easily tell when you're there, it just feels different. The hammer kind of bounces back, and we'll take our bearing, lubed up. These hub bearings, you don't need to pack with grease or anything like that because they're submerged in gear oil all the time, and that's how they get lubricated. So that's why we just use a little bit of gear oil to get them installed. Last thing to do, and then we're ready to install, and that is put in our seal. Clean the hub one more time. We will drop the seal in and carefully get it in there nice and even. Back here at the axle, now with the spindle, I cleaned it really good and then lubed it up. So we are now ready to throw the hub assembly and drum back on. Woo-wee! Ready to get her buttoned up. Throw the washer on first, and our first nut. All right, now we got the torque wrench hooked up, and while spinning the hub, tighten it down to 50 foot-pounds. And we're there. Now we'll crack that nut loose. Then we'll go to 35 foot-pounds with it. And this is all right out of the Haynes manual. It seems like there's a lot of speculation on this procedure going around on the internet, but that's why I just stick to the books. Throw in this retainer and the outer nut right there. So that one's going to 65 foot-pounds. We'll call it good. We'll get in there and bend as many of these tabs as we can. That's the deal. All right, check it out. Permatex Ultra Black. Thin coat on the hub, thin coat on the axle shaft, both of which were clean and dry. Now, the gasket, also cleaned it off, dried it off. It's just a little metal disc. We're gonna slide it down. And we're gonna line it up with the holes and press it on a little bit. Gasket ought to hold it. Ready to reassemble the axle shaft. Come on now. And go in. Start some hardware. 3/4. And I'm just snugging them up by hand before I get the torque wrench out. Activate the e-brake. That'll hold it. Sure enough. All right, 8 lug. You do 1, you skip 2. Do 1, skip 2. Okay. Driver's side completely done. Now I'm gonna do everything I just did on this side over on the passenger side. So there's 2 reasons I decided to tackle this job. 1, the brakes being a little bit off. And 2, what I thought was a leaking shock was actually the hub seal that went out, and it was slinging oil everywhere. I knew it wasn't the shock because after we did the new lift kit, it did it again, and there was oil everywhere. And you can just see it's caked up on here. It's probably that inner seal that we had to punch in. Since I did new bearings on the driver's side, I got new bearings for this side. So we're gonna do bearings, brakes, new hardware, all that. I think all my questions have been answered about why the brakes sucked and why this side was leaking. When I pulled this drum off, the whole brake assembly, the shoes, everything was just coated with oil. The whole inside of the drum also coated with gear oil. I suspect this leak was because the oil seal that's pressed into the back of the hub here was backwards. It was facing the wrong way. And it was pressed in there like that, causing a massive oil leak, and every time you hit the brakes, it was just oil. So this side was not contributing to stopping the truck at all. But we got it all back together, ready for reassembly. New bearings in there. That outer race fought me. I probably spent an hour trying to get that thing out, but got it out, new ones in, ready to reassemble. We're about ready for the diff cover and to button this up, but since that outer bearing on the driver's side grenaded, there's a bunch of goop in here on the magnet. We'll try and fish as much as that out as we can. Good enough. Oh, by the way, that is a Govlock factory limited slip. So that was a pleasant surprise when I pulled off that diff cover. Still not sure of the gear ratio, but I ain't too worried about that right now. Got the diff cover ready to go. Hang a bolt. Gonna add some limited slip additive. All right, we're there. Good deal. The last thing we're gonna do quick is bleed the brakes. It probably won't take too long since we just had those lines off for a second, but some air probably did get in there. So we're just gonna bleed them just to make sure. Recruit some help. You know the drill. That's pretty full. We're starting at the back right corner, farthest away from the master cylinder. Pump it up. Brakes are bled. It didn't take too long to get them done, as suspected. We're out on the test route, and holy crap, night and day difference with the brakes. They're actually there. It stops like it should. Drum brakes are going to be inherently a little bit squishy, but compared to what it was doing, this is so much better. They're right there. Very responsive. Definitely a successful install. So that is going to wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some use out of it. If you need to get you a Squarebody shirt or a sticker, Jeep shirt, whatever, check out jeepandjimmy.com. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.